Welcome to the WanderLearn show. I'm your host, Tapon. In this episode, I have Riiitsalu. She is an Estonian who lives on the island of Hiiumaa in Estonia. Ege runs workshops on radical forgiveness and happiness therapy. So the whole idea is to go through this journey and you travel through guilt, disappointment, and regret, and you move on to forgiveness, freedom, and joy. And I think this is important because a lot of times people travel in order to transform themselves. But part of the process of transforming yourself is also through knowing how to forgive things in your life, things that have happened to you, and also to be forgiven. So this is an introductory podcast to Ege. It's a 2-part podcast. Next week, she'll be back and talk more about this important subject that I hope hits you in a profound way. And now, Ege. We are in Estonia, in Tallinn, and you're doing something about radical forgiveness.
Yes, exactly.
Before we get into anything, I guess we should define terms. What is radical forgiveness and how does it compare to regular forgiveness?
So it's a therapeutic process. It has 5 steps. The topic of forgiveness is quite wide and people confuse it with really many different things. But I think forgiveness is something we all need in one point or another. So we need to be forgiven and also we need to receive forgiveness. But this radical forgiveness is a concrete method and it goes wider, it goes in more depth
than normal forgiveness.
Than normal forgiveness.
Okay,
yes.
So can you give an example maybe?
So the main point is to reframe the story. So if we look at just the regular forgiveness, it's a challenge for most people because the story of pain or suffering remains. It might happen that you reach the level of forgiveness and you can get a release of it. But the victim story or the sufferer's story still remains there. But radical forgiveness goes a step forward to reframe the story. So if the story is not there anymore, then there's nothing to forgive. And this is the radical shift we are aiming in my workshops and therapy.
So we're actually taking steps backwards to the story itself, right?
Yes.
And
first.
So tell me about, let's say, the victim archetype and what is that and how do we employ it in our everyday life?
The victim archetype is a place where we feel that we are suffering, or the definition actually is that something or someone concretely is responsible for the lack of happiness in my life.
Give me an example.
Like something happened maybe in my marriage and I don't see my part in it. I'm always in the place where I feel that everything is done to me and somebody else is to blame. I don't see the wider picture. I'm just suffering there. I'm feeling pain, injustice, and my needs are not met. So it's like a Cinderella story in a way.
You're saying that a lot of us, if not every one of us, can be prone to doing this and telling us that people are doing things to me.
Yes.
And I am a victim of my husband, of my boss, of my friend, of whoever. Of the guy who cut me off in the car.
Yes. So life happens with all of us. It's what I always say. It's the game of life. And one thing that happens in the game is that we all get hurt. We all suffer. But the thing is, how long will you stay in the sufferer story? So we don't have a choice always in what happens to us, but we have a choice in how long we stay in the victim story.
Let's say you have an argument with your boss, for example, and your boss tells you something that's very mean, and then you're a victim to that. But at some point, you need to forgive that boss, perhaps, or your spouse, or your boyfriend, or your girlfriend, things like that. How does one go about that? Like, what are some of the steps that I think most people go wrong? Where did they go wrong?
So the first step always in radical forgiveness is actually telling the story, giving value to it, like seeing it from different angles. Feeling the emotions, it's very, very important.
Are you saying that most people are only seeing the story from their angle?
Yes.
That's the problem?
That's the problem. Usually it's like my angle, my emotions. I don't see the wider picture. It's a place that it's easy to get stuck in. And you lose your self-empowerment there, your freedom. You feel like you're stuck.
Is that because of our ego? We're just focusing on our own self?
There can be emotions that keep us stuck. For example, maybe I feel very guilty as a mother. And this guilt kind of, I cannot see past the guilt.
When should you not forgive?
Yes. I would always aim for forgiveness. I know you asked the same question yesterday, like when not to forgive.
Because for me, it's all the time. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but people tell this to me, like, but what if I don't want to forgive? Which is completely, I think, the right question to ask. But there is also always a cost here. Yes, there's some kind of story that will still continue in your life. There is still blame there. There is emotions, maybe hatred or self-righteousness there. So in a way, the suffering will continue. Maybe anger. So if you go to the journey of trying to be open to the possibility of reaching the forgiveness, the gain is more freedom, more peace of mind, more openness, more love.
I think that's what's most counterintuitive. I think for a lot of people, forgiveness, everybody thinks that forgiveness is for whoever did the crime. Mm-hmm. But in fact, it's for you, the person who's been victimized, right? Who's hurting. Yeah. You benefit from forgiving other people.
Yes, because every forgiveness is always self-forgiveness. It basically, you free yourself from the chains of whatever happened to you. So this is the main story. So you will like drag it on and you won't say, I'm like this and this happened to me and I'm like a victim there. You get free of the story.
Let's talk about the difference between reconciliation and forgiveness. Mm-hmm. When should you not reconcile? You might forgive, but then you don't want to reconcile.
Which is completely okay, because I think people want to put these two together, but it's not the same thing. You can reach forgiveness, which means you can lose the baggage of whatever happened, but you don't definitely need to reconcile. Maybe there has been violence in the relationship. Maybe you have given it many chances to change, but it hasn't. So the smart thing to do is to heal yourself, get rid of the baggage, and then move forward.
Got it. Mm-hmm. If somebody wants to go to one of your radical forgiveness workshops,
yes,
do they have to come to Estonia?
For now, but hopefully soon.
Now Estonia, tomorrow the world.
Yeah, so this is the aim for me.
Yes. And tell people how they can find you on the internet.
It's my homepage, Riiitsalu.com, Instagram, Facebook.
I will put links in the show notes below. Mm-hmm. Any other last parting words of wisdom that you can give to somebody who's right now struggling because either they need somebody to forgive them, or maybe they need to forgive somebody who hurt them?
Yes, and I know personally it can be really, really tormenting, creating pain and suffering, right? So the first thing I recommend always is therapy or some kind of counseling to actually start to work on the process of releasing the pain and discovering the story.
How do you find such a counselor or
You can
therapist?
always contact me.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think there are wonderful people there who do different kinds of therapy. Okay. So for me, always my mission is to say that you don't need to continue on suffering. There is a way to step out of it, to become free of it. Of course, it's a journey, but it's a journey worth taking. Yeah.
Well said. Okay. Ege, thank you so much again and appreciate you coming on the WanderLearn show. And for anybody else who wants to learn some more, go to the show notes. This is Francis Tapon encouraging you to wander and learn and forgive. And that ends this episode of the WanderLearn podcast, where we explore travel, technology, and transformation. If you'd like to see the show notes with links to what we've talked about, go to wanderlearn.com and click on this episode. If you'd like to connect with me, just remember F Tapon. That's my first initial and my last name. ftapon is always my social media username. My website is ftapon.com. Do you want to leave me an anonymous voicemail where you can make a comment or ask a question. Then go to speakpipe.com/ftapon. Furthermore, if you'd like to get rewarded for supporting my projects, then go to patreon.com/ftapon. That's where you can pick up some remarkable rewards for as little as $2 a month. Now, 5 quick favors. Number 1, subscribe to the WanderLearn podcast. 2, download it. 3, share it. 4, review it. And 5, sign up for my newsletter at wanderlearn.com. Our theme music was composed by Eric Stratman. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn.